Hello, everybody. I'm Myron Medcalf with the Marion Key Book Club, joined by Shannon Gibney, who will be the moderator of our panel, Parable of a Sower. Octavia Butler, that will be November 3rd, Thursday, an incredible event, Central Library. Tell your friends, tell your kinfolk, have a party, come on down. We want to see you there. It's kind of cool to get to this point where we're doing a live event. Everything's been virtual so far because of the pandemic. And I'm so happy to have our great panel. Shannon will lead it, professor, an author, a speaker, and everything. Maya Washington is a local actress, activist, speaker. Janae Bates is involved in so many different things that have been happening on the ground throughout Minneapolis and beyond. And we're going to get everybody together and have a conversation about this book. And I'm really looking forward to that. So definitely love to see you out there on Thursday. The panel, I think, is going to be really cool, Shannon. We had some meetings. We had our first meeting. And I'm just really looking forward to the conversation. Like, what do you hope people get out of that conversation?
You know, I just think Butler's work is still so relevant today, even though this book was written in the early 90s. And so I just think, I just hope that, people come, ready to sort of like hear all the interesting connections, historical and also right now, and explore those with us in the panel. I'm also really excited, honestly, to be talking about, visionary work by a Black woman with two other Black women. I think a lot of times, Black women we're not presented as the experts on things, or certainly not people that, are number one in terms of who people want to hear from. And, Octavia Butler was like a singular Black woman, and she's, as I said, visionary, and defied categorization. So much of her work went against the grain. And so I just feel like anytime we can kind of hold that up, it's just a beautiful moment. So I'm really looking forward to, because I don't actually know Janae or Maya. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing some of their thoughts and the connections that they're going to make as well to the text.
Yeah. Now, I think it'll be an awesome panel. I mean, because of what you just said, now who Octavia Butler was, like when I read this book, like I wish Octavia was still here, and she is present always, but I would love to sit down with her and just like turn on a 24/7 news channel and just see what she thought of it, and I just wonder how she would digest that and kind of like what the world is right now, what the world seems to on its way to becoming. It's just fascinating when I read this book and sort of the proximity to where we are today is so fascinating. And I know she resisted the prophet, label, but every time I read this book, I'm like, every page, I'm like, wait a minute, this is too close to kind of what we're experiencing. I think there are a lot of really components in this book that I think people can sort of digest and relate to their own lives. I just think it's an amazing story. She's a great storyteller.
Yes.
And the layers and the complexities of her characters.
Yes.
The nuance in this book is so fascinating to me. What was maybe the most relatable portion of this book or chapter or scene or event or moment for you so far?
I mean, I think it's hard, as you said, to name just one, because there's so much. It's so rich. But I think for me, being a writer myself and a teacher and a bibliophile, I do read a lot of books, but I haven't read a book in a long time that was, I think, so panoramic in terms of its understanding of communities and how people move through communities and moments, and communities move through moments themselves, so that, Lauren is definitely the protagonist, but it's almost like in another way, like these groups of people also that she's connected to. Oh my God, that she's
That's all
connected.
right. That's fine. This is Zoom in 2022, and this is real life. No
Yeah,
worries at all.
plenty of real life here. Yes,
Yeah.
we've got all the real life that you want. Stop, that's my dog. So, okay, all right. Yeah, sorry everyone.
No, don't be sorry, because this is real life. This is what happens. And the complexities. Something I thought about was just like, she's a protagonist, Lauren, right? And I feel like so many books, the male protagonist, the male lead character, so many times, I think is really just sort of asked to win. I think in sort of some way, like it's just sort of asked to, like, just get to the end of the book and have some sense of victory, and like the male protagonist is often rewarded for that, which is really just survival in some way. But like the women in the same role are asked to survive and nurture and feed and raise and lead and hold together, and do like 28 things.
Yep.
While also being asked to get to the end of the story intact.
Yep.
And what's cool to me about Lauren is, I guess, one of the messages I feel like Octavia Butler is sending through everything Lauren is going through. Lauren's surviving. Like, she's surviving. Lauren is flawed. Like, Lauren is dealing with obviously a lot of different things that, I mean, to me, everything she does is a result of the chaos and the trauma and the loss, but she's surviving. And I think it's really cool that at the end of the day, part of me feels like Octavia Butler saying is, that's sufficient. Lauren ain't got to do anything else but keep going. Like, that's victory in and of itself. And like male characters in this same position, that's always the case. Like, it's not even just books; it's every movie. Is the same. So I thought that was cool that she flipped what, to me, we so often see with male protagonists. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense. And I think it's like, in many ways, I mean, Lauren is not a sympathetic character. I talked about this with some people at my book club. Like, there's kind of a hardness to her. But I think it's born of that deep commitment that she has to surviving. I mean, there's many times in the book where they're like, oh, what are we gonna do if somebody comes into the camp in the middle of the night? Well, I'll kill him. And if I don't, and it's just like, like, that's just how it is, right? And it's just like, as a reader now with my, bougie middle class, comfy life, like, I'm like, but it's like, we were talking about in the book club, and it's like, this is a completely different context, right? Like, none of us actually know how we would react if we were in the middle of an apocalypse. Yes, I'm doing something. Okay. If we were in the middle of an apocalypse and, masses of people were moving on the highway, and, of course, there would be people doing mayhem and suspect stuff. You guys can get started, okay? I need to finish this.
Yeah. We'd survive. I mean, I think that's what we would do. And class wouldn't matter. Background, education, all those things that I think we believe gives us a certain, privilege and opportunity, or none of that would matter at the end of the day, when the storm is there. And I feel like with Lauren, that's the message. Like, Lauren is about that life, for sure, right? And
I mean, she just, and I do think it's kind of shocking, like, even now, it's like, 25 years later, to read it, and to read a female protagonist who's so just like hardcore, like goes hard, you know,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, and it's interesting, like, yeah, all those, none of that stuff is going to protect you, right? Like class, race, whatever. And even like, you know, sort of still and yet, the more intersectional that you get, right? She talks about many times, like, oh, we're a multiracial group. Like that makes
Yeah.
us more vulnerable. Like this, you know, other thing makes us more vulnerable. Like these are two, you know, young children and we're trying, you know, like
Yeah.
all these things. Um, and so it's just, I mean, this to me is what all literature does, but specifically speculative literature is in providing a completely different context. It gives you all these things to reflect on in your current
Mhm.
in your current context that otherwise you probably wouldn't examine in that way,
Yeah.
and in that depth, you know. And I think that's just really the gift of Butler. And just, you know, like I just feel like her stuff is just like, well, this is just the way it is. You don't have to
Mhm.
like it. You don't have to whatever, you know. I mean, some of her other stuff, it's like I read and it's like human beings are getting, you know, genetically crossed with
Yeah.
with aliens. And it's like I have a physical reaction of revulsion.
Yeah.
Like I am
Yeah.
like, oh my God,
Yeah. It's a
you know?
lot. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like she's like, yeah,
Yeah.
and if the human species is going to survive, this is what it's going to take, right? And so, what does that mean, right? And so, I
Yeah.
feel like that's where we are with Parable of the Sower, right? Is sort of like this is what it is, you know. It's human hierarchy, it's power, it's, you know, like the weak ones are not going to survive. So then, what are you going
Mhm.
to do?
Yeah. And it's in your face. I mean,
Yeah,
100%. I mean, she is not holding back. And I think it's forcing us to confront ourselves. Well, we don't want to give them everything before the
yeah,
panel. We want them to smell the food in the
yeah.
kitchen, right? You know, we don't sample it yet, right?
We don't
So
have to sample arm cooking
yeah,
on the.
no. Get out of the kitchen. No spoonfuls of the food yet. So, but definitely Thursday, November 3rd, we have a great panel. Really looking forward to this. Our first in-person panel.
So excited.
There'll be a hybrid option too for people watching online, but we love to see people in person. For Shannon Gibney, I'm Myron Metcalf. Thank you again for watching.
Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the 3rd.